Hi, welcome back to Surviving Semester 1. So hopefully by now you've been able to get some essays under your belt. If you're in second year or third year, you'll have them already. If you're in first year, maybe you've had an absolute howler of a first essay. It's a really tough one. We're used to getting perhaps A's and B's and things like that at A level. So when you get to uni, you're hoping to be getting T1 straight away, and it's really rarely the case. In fact, I've done a whole video on the jump really from A level to undergraduate writing. But if you're in second year, third year, and you're thinking, well, how do I get up an extra grade boundary? Maybe you're sat at a T1 and you want in a first. What I'm going to do today is show you how to tweak the way you draft to help assert the new grade boundary points, so to help push you up a little bit. Of course, if you're wanting to jump loads of grade boundaries, it's not going to happen right away. Have a look at some of my planning videos to give you a bit of an idea of where you might be going wrong. Today, it's all about fine-tuning. So we're going to be on the screen together taking a look at how we can improve the phrasing of those essays to help you get the higher marks. Let's take a nice compare and contrast question to see how we can structure the essay more effectively and set that up in the introduction. So for argument and evaluation, if you had a compare and contrast question like we have here, and you set it up by giving an unnecessarily long definition that the marker would be expected to know, and then instead of setting up the themes and the key areas for inquiry, you decide to split this with Greek literature and then Latin literature, you're setting yourself up for a 2-2 really, because what will happen is you'll list all the features of necromantic rituals in Greek culture, you'll then do it in Roman culture or in Latin texts, and you'll not pick up on nuances. You'll end up repeating yourself, and you're not setting yourself up for a nuanced argument. Remember what we said in the A-level to undergraduate video. There's a difference between balance and nuance, and this doesn't tell me what the argument is. It also sets me up for a very flat and repetitive evaluation. So let's have a look at how we could improve this by having a look at the 2-1 example. Okay, turning to the 2-1 example, we can see immediately the introduction has set up the texts that are going to be used. Got a much clearer idea of what's going to be evaluated here because we know what the evidence is. We also have a bit of an indication on what the key themes are. So rather than going for that really flat yes, no, Greece, Rome, you've already done some analysis and you're proving that in your introduction. This also tells the marker that you understand the specific uses of necromancy and how it features in these texts, and that you're going to be crafting a bit more of an argument, okay? So in the final sentence, to compare how Greek and Latin authors shape their texts in relation to developing attitudes surrounding necromancy, that tells me you're going to make the case that the texts reflect contemporary culture, okay? So it's not just comparing and contrasting the representations, but it's arguing why they changed. So that's your spin on the question, and that's how you're demonstrating to the marker that you're going to craft a brilliant argument. Okay, little tweaks like that set you up for a completely different essay, and this is building towards a 2-1. If we turn to the first class example, the tweaks are really telling you how necromantic ritual is used in different texts, so what do they offer the text. And this is the main difference between the 2-1 and the first class introduction. So there's a much heavier handed sense of argument, okay? So necromantic ritual is used in both epic and pseudo-historic texts to develop a plot, to build characterization and enhance the work as part of its generic tradition. So, what kind of things are we going to be measuring this compare and contrast against? The study aims to consider all the same things that the 2-1 example did, okay? So what we've done is we've just tweaked and added a greater sense of argument, and that redundant sort of definition isn't necessary. Defining key terms can be important, but if the marker would know what it is, if there's no ambiguity about what the key term involves, then that's best left for conveying an argument and setting out your areas for inquiry. Okay, now that we've looked at argument and evaluation, let's have a look at the way we use primary sources. So the 2-2 example would be that you give an indication, you can see it in red, you're referencing a source, and this is Theocritus Idylls. We can see Idyll 1, 1.19, because it's poetry, so we have to have a line reference. There's a rough kind of overview that follows of what happens in that extract, but there's no indication quite yet as to why it's important. When we go to 2.1, we can see that we've got several specific line references and a much clearer idea of what's important about the passage. Okay, so you can see the overall setting, it's sort of signposting the relevance of each bit of evidence that you have cited. So it's linking backwards to aforementioned elements, what's come in the paragraph before. We have these nice specific references we saw in the 2.1 example, 1.19, 19 to 25, but we have more of an idea of how the poem comes together overall, of its structure. So within this outer frame, for example, gives us an idea of how the poem's set up to have herdsmen singing to one another within, okay? And then we have the so what test at the end, so thus showing the herdsmen to be at one with both their romantic natural space and one another. So why is that evidence really important? Does all of the evidence you cite support your conclusions, and what does it offer to your overall argument? That's the most clear from this example, and that's what makes it a first class example. Arguing with secondary is the next most problematic issue. If you quote someone and just really passively cite them, like you can see in the 2.2 example, and then build on with a completely separate point without connecting them, that's going to get you a 2.2. You're dropping them in, we know you've read, but it doesn't really support your argument. You're not agreeing or disagreeing with them really explicitly, even if you feel as though you are. In general, perhaps avoiding ending a paragraph with a quote or with a reference might safeguard you from this, but it is possible to loop people back in, and let's have a little look at the 2.1 example to mark a bit of a contrast here. Okay, so here you're pushing on by at least including some primary evidence to build on the point. It's not clear what the relationship is with the secondary altogether, but it's perhaps implicit. You've quite passively agreed you could state your claim a bit more clearly, but in principle you've got the right components, you've got your primary evidence in amber there, and you've got Pogioli, you've got some secondary. It's just that you're not quite doing what you need to be doing with it, you're not quite getting to the crux of an argument. Okay, in the first class example you can see that you're furthering the secondary scholar's opinion really explicitly. All of the primary evidence is there, and I've highlighted at first glance because it suggests you're going to push on and really reevaluate what you've seen. However, for a first class essay, the one thing you are going to eventually have to do is find a way of disagreeing, and you can see this here. You can state a claim and then pop in however I would contest or I would argue, but challenge yourself by adding although. If you add although Hutchinson suggests, you're forcing yourself to argue. But it's all about pushing for every word to count. That's really the difference between a first and a 2.1. In a 2.1 there might be a few digressions, you might go off topic for a second or two. For a first class essay, every single word has its purpose, and it's all about working towards hammering your argument across, hammering the points home by phrasing things as effectively as you possibly can. So hopefully that's giving you a little bit of an idea on how you can improve your mark when you're writing, you're drafting up. Often it's little changes in phrasing to make really clear, how you're engaging with secondary, how you're including your primary evidence. Okay, so give it a try, let me know how it goes, and if there's anything I'm not covering in this series that you want me to cover, please let me know in the comment section below. Until then, please like, subscribe and share the videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks!